Get ready, bright boys, because tonight we'll be reviewing some pure Kino, the 1946 classic film noir, The Killers. Directed by Robert Siodmak with Burt Lancaster and the lovely Ava Gardner in the lead roles, The Killers is a tale of tragic love and inescapable betrayal. This film is also an adaptation of the Ernest Hemingway short story of the same name. Well, sort of. We'll get to that later. For now, though, this is The Killers. The film opens with a pair of shady men arriving in the small town of Brentwood. They enter a diner, and from their hostile interactions with the owner, we immediately feel the tension start to rise. They then take everyone in the diner hostage, as they reveal that they are there to kill a man known as the Swede, played by Burt Lancaster, who works in a gas station across the street. When he doesn't show, they take off, and one of the hostages runs off to warn the Swede that there are men trying to kill him. However, he doesn't seem to care if he lives or dies, as he made a mistake in the past, and now there's nothing for him to do about it. Later, the killers find him in his room and shoot him, and from there, the rest of the movie is an investigation to figure out who he was and why he was killed. We then follow James Reardon, played by Edmund O'Brien, an insurance investigator tracking down the payout of the Swede's life insurance policy. He interviews several people who knew the Swede, including his former friend and now police officer, Sam Lubinsky. From them, he learns that the Swede was once a promising boxer, but after losing his career and being seduced by the beautiful Kitty Collins, played by Ava Gardner, he gets pulled into a life of crime for her. This culminates with him joining a crew to heist $250,000 from the payroll of a hat factory. The heist is successful, but the Swede betrays the group and takes the money for himself and Kitty, after learning from her that the group was planning on betraying him and taking his share. However, it's revealed that Kitty lied and set him up so that she could steal all the money for herself and her lover, and leaves the Swede stranded and penniless, which is where we found him at the beginning of the film. The investigation culminates with a plot to draw out the truth, and after a shootout with the killers and the rest of the crew, Kitty's lies are revealed and justice is served to her. Reardon closes the case, and we cut to credits. I was first introduced to this film by my screenwriting professor, who showed us the intro scene as an example of creating tension through subtle dialogue. The way the killers keep calling the owner Bright Boy sarcastically creates this incredible sense of danger, despite the fact that on the surface, they're simply ordering dinner. And when the Swede doesn't react to the fact that men are coming to kill him, we're left with this tantalizing mystery of what could have possibly led to this moment. It's a great setup for the rest of the plot, which follows in a typical noir fashion. We've got a highly competent investigator, we've got the beautiful but treacherous femme fatale, we've got heists, we've got affairs, we've got the double cross to end all double crosses. It's a classic noir, and it works for the most part. Remember when I said this was based on the Hemingway short story? Well, if you know anything about Hemingway, you know his stories tend to be on the short side of short. The whole story is the opening scene, basically word for word, and everything after the Swede's death is original to the movie. Supposedly, this is the only adaptation of his work that Hemingway actually liked, and I can see why. His style of short and terse dialogue translates really well to the noir genre. Plus, it has all of his favorite things: drinking, fighting, and a beautiful woman who leads men to ruin. Now, I'm not sure if it's because the opening is the only thing adapted from the story, but the opening is definitely the strongest part of the movie. What follows isn't bad by any means. It's a well-paced mystery that gives out information while continuing to throw curveballs at the viewer. But the biggest problem the movie has is with focus. Who is the main character? It could be argued that the movie revolves around the Swede, and he does have great development. We're introduced to him as this great boxer with a promising career, but that's ripped away from him when he breaks his hand in the big match. When his coach starts talking about finding a new champ right in front of him, it's heartbreaking. And as we see Kitty manipulate him into throwing his life away for her, despite his friend's warnings, we realize why he accepted his fate at the beginning of the film. His real tragedy was letting his love for Kitty blind him to her true nature, and now that he knows, there's nothing for him to do about it. But the Swede is dead for most of the movie, and serves as more of a mystery than a character for most of it. The one actively driving the plot is Reardon, and while he is very competent and even charming at times, he lacks a personal stake in the conflict. He keeps pushing to be kept on the case, even when his boss wants him to quit and focus on other things, but we aren't given a good reason as to why. We later learn that his company paid the insurance after the robbery at the Prentice Hat Company, and that by solving the case, they can somehow lower their rates a little bit. That's not exactly a great motivation, and because of that, Reardon doesn't have a strong enough connection to the case to make him a truly compelling lead. However, Lubinsky does. He knew the Swede growing up, and was there with him when he lost his boxing career, and he was the one that arrested him and sent him down the path that would eventually lead to his death. That, along with the guilt of marrying his old sweetheart, would give him the perfect motivation to want to solve his death. The whole movie should have revolved around him. He could have been a detective going outside the law to avenge his old friend, but instead he's demoted to the role of sidekick during the final confrontation. I honestly think it was a missed opportunity. However, despite these problems, the film does have an important place in the history of noir cinema. It's part of the golden age of the 40s, along with Double Indemnity, Out of the Past, The Maltese Falcon, and many others that we're going to explore later. And along with those movies, it helped establish the hallmarks of the genre. Plus, this movie has some incredible shots and shadows. Take a look at these. The cast gives a great performance as well, and for many of them, this was their breakout. Lancaster and Gardner were both unknown before this film, and this movie launched their careers. This was William Conrad's first role as well, as one of the titular killers, and I really like his look. Despite being a small role, he definitely stands out, and when he and his partner show up at the end, it's an incredibly exciting moment. Well, that's about all I have to say for this film. You should definitely check it out if you haven't seen it, and let me know what classic Kino you think I should review next.